Hello, I'm Dr. Nidhi Gupta, pediatric endocrinologist and digital wellness coach in Nashville, Tennessee. This is Inspinar. One of the greatest challenges of our age is to not only live connected to one another through technology, but to do so in a way that is beneficial to our own well-being, a way that fosters efficiency at work, a way that helps us preserve our humanity. Our guest on Inspinar today, Dr. Anastasia, is a global thought leader on digital well-being, twice TEDx speaker, and best-selling author of Homo Distractus. She is the founder of Consciously Digital, the international network of over 110 digital wellness coaches. Anastasia, welcome to Inspinar.
Thank you very much, Nidhi. My pleasure to be here. And a small correction, we already over 120. We just recently graduated our 9th cohort.
Awesome. Congratulations. Congratulations. I hope your herd keeps growing because the world absolutely needs way more digital wellness coaches than what we have right now.
Totally. Yeah. One thing we cannot complain of is a lack of work. That's for sure.
That is for sure. And that is because people are now starting to recognize, and I'm sure you see that in your own work sphere as well, Anastasia, that people are spending, or they are now starting to recognize and acknowledge that they are spending too much time on the screens. Ironically, there are plenty of digital wellness apps that focus around limiting the time spent on screens. It's like trying to use technology to solve the problem of technology. So, Anastasia, when you say that digital wellness is much more than screen time, tell us what you mean.
So we are essentially living in the world where you are told that sugar is bad for you, but your only option is to buy food that has certain amounts of sugar. When you're asked to do everything using technology, I think complaining of screen time or saying that you need to reduce your screen time is very naive. And the real problem is not how much time we're spending with technology, but that we are outsourcing more and more of our human capabilities to technology, like our memory, our navigation. Now it's more and more creativity if we talk about generative AI. We use it for education, we use it to talk to other people. And in some cases it's great, but of course, if we think that technology is going to help us with all these things, we need to acknowledge the fact that by definition, we will have more and more time spent on the screens. So what we suggest in Consciously Digital when we work with people is focus not on the time spent on the screens, but on 3 dimensions. So one is, can you stay focused on what you're doing? And we're talking here about deep work and focused work, but also focused when you're interacting with somebody. Is technology, interfering with that, or is it supporting you with that? Do you have a really deep conversation with somebody? Do you, get distracted by your phone when you're in a meeting? Or are you there with a person? Or are you multitasking when you're in a video call? We actually know this from research, and that's confirmed by other researchers that most people multitask when they're on the video. Yeah, and some people even manage to be on 2 video calls simultaneously. So that's one, ability to stay focused and present on whatever you're doing, or even on your own thoughts. The second one is ability to unplug and properly rest. And it's not that by definition you have to unplug to properly rest, but because we again rarely use technology just for one purpose. Even if you're using the meditation app, probably you will reach out to check something else, and like go for YouTube for a meditation video, and here it plays advertising and all of those things. When you go in nature, for instance, can you really have a little rest and just be with yourself, restore your natural rhythms? Can you take the proper sleep without being disturbed by your phone, and like without blue light interfering with your melatonin and things like that? And very few people actually do it these days. We still kind of allow technology to accompany us everywhere, whether we need it or not. So first, ability to stay focused. Second one, resting and unplugging. And third one, ability to maintain health and to support your physical body. And I'm referring to facts like half of the population turning myopic, according to WHO forecasts by 2050, because we spend just way too much time staring at our screens instead of looking into the distance. Different problems related to spine, shoulders, carpal tunnel syndrome, all these things. And these illnesses are becoming younger and younger. So basically everything that has to do with making sure that when we're using technology, we're actually still behaving like humans, moving enough, not pursuing the sedentary lifestyle, which we tend to do. So I think if we can manage these three dimensions, and this is, by the way, relevant both for adults and for children, then we can talk about having a good tech-life balance, or the good sense of digital well-being. Whereas if you just focus on limiting screen time, it's not per se going to be a remedy.
So the issue is not how much time is spent on the screens, but I often talk to my students and my clients about, and that is what I hear from you, Anastasia. The issue is not how much time is spent on the screens, but the issue is what else could be happening during that time that the screens have helped us escape from, or the screens have helped us displace. When you talk about the dimensions of digital well-being, I hear the ability to unplug and rest, the ability to stay focused on whatever it is that a person is doing, the ability to support their physical health, and maybe to have a sense of purpose in life. Is that something that is a dimension of digital well-being? And do you feel that the younger generation and even adults and older people are losing sight of what is their purpose in life because of the distractions from virtual world, Anastasia?
Absolutely. To use the wording of Adam Alter from his TEDx talk, how much time are you living for your humanity? For all those things that make you human. And if you think about, this higher dimension, you can talk about executive function, you can talk about higher goals, you can talk about, the purpose, or some people will talk about religion, but let's say that I call it like the higher human dimension. Why are we here? This is higher goals, ability to set and pursue these higher goals. When we are distracted by our devices, when we're spreading ourselves thinly, when we're depleting our energy because we didn't purposefully use them throughout the day, or we allowed our attention to be drifting. And I speak a lot about attention because our attention is basically the regulator of the energy. That's where your attention goes and your energy flows. If you have been spreading yourself thinly, then by the end of the day, you just have no energy left to pursue your goals, even if you were going to do that. So that's a very important thing. And for instance, when we start working with clients, we never start working with tips and tricks. Of course, people come and say, oh, hey, give me behavioral strategy. How do I don't know, stop swiping Instagram? And the thing is, it actually should start with who you are and what your goals are. So if your identity, let's say my identity is a successful writer, or my identity is a well-being leader, and I want to set up an example, why would I even go on Instagram, right? Or if I go there, I would go there consciously for a certain time period, and I will know that actually what I'm looking there is some inspiration, maybe like some amazing leaders, and see the work that they do. Yeah, that's also fine. It doesn't mean that Instagram has to be removed from this planet. But there is intentionality there, yeah, and this is me focusing on my goal based on who I am. There's been an interesting research that was done in terms of leisure time, and that was done on teenagers, that actually shows that when teenagers had structured leisure time, so like they were going to the gym, they, like, I don't know, like volunteering, something outside of the school, engaging into sports activities, it was highly correlated with less problematic screen time. Whereas vice versa, when teens didn't engage into any structured time, so for instance, they were just left alone to hang out with their friends in whichever way, or like go into discos. So nothing wrong with discos, but basically when there was no specific goals or no, like no expectation of what will be done, this was a huge predictor that they will have problematic internet usage, problematic technology behavior. So basically they won't be able to control their impulses. So this intentionality, this, who am I, and therefore what do I want to do, is actually one of the drivers, of healthy digital behavior. And perhaps one of the tips for parents, I know that you work with parents, is, rather than limiting or, like removing the screens from your kids, try to teach them this intentionality. Yeah, obviously depending on the age, you may need to curate that, but that's about making conscious choices, and that is much more sustainable strategy.
So it sounds like attention is the regulator of energy. Where attention goes, the energy flows. And it's important for us, in order to preserve our humanity, to insert a degree of intentionality into our interactions online. Before we click, swipe, scroll, there has to be a level of intentionality. For adolescents and teenagers, it's really hard for them to expect to insert that level of intentionality without some education. But I'm seeing that, and I'm sure you are too, even in adults or even in grandparents, it's become sort of like a subconscious response. With the way the content that we are accessing online, the way it is designed, using reverse psychology and all of the principles behind it, what comes in the way of being intentional? What are the barriers that are preventing people from being intentional? There are the way that content is designed just does not allow them to be intentional. It's designed for them to have cravings. What are some tools that people can use to manage that craving?
Yeah, it's a great question. Before I go into practicalities, I actually wanted to raise a very philosophical question. So one thing that we see again and again in the research that we do with and with companies and with clients and just in the conversations, is one of the biggest factors that contributes to your well-being overall and digital well-being in particular is your sense of agency. Are you in control or are you being controlled? And yes, this is true that algorithms are designed the way to predict your behavior. And by predicting, like in order to predict your behavior, actually what they do, they try to, show you the content that kind of groups you, and pushes you to a particular side. So, where everyone has seen all these videos about how you start with one type of content on YouTube and then it becomes more and more radicalized. The reason being it is just easier for the algorithm, like to know, okay, like now this person definitely belongs to this category. So unfortunately, the algorithms work the way that they're trying to simplify us, and to remove the sense of agency. But and we can, like we can experience or be deprived of this sense of agency anywhere with technology. If we experience surveillance, for example, in the workplace, we know that this is a very big predictor in the decline of the well-being. People who know they're being observed, they actually have problems with their hearts, they have problems with immune systems, and that's been already before the digital age. Same, by the way, with the sleep. If you're being observed when you're sleeping, actually you don't sleep as well. Been scientifically proven. But there are a couple of options here, right? Like one is you can pretend nothing is happening, which is most people do. And they kind of feel they're in control, but the truth is they're not. Or you can become intentional and you can claim the sense of agency. And on a day-by-day basis, the way you can claim the sense of agency is deciding when you're connecting, when you're not connecting, where you're available, where you're not. So one of the simplest things is, like if I'm in the bedroom, there is no room for devices there, just because my rest is my priority. And I know that, like if I have my messenger next to me, somebody will want something from me. Like, why would I want all these people in my bedroom? Literally. So managing relationships with other people, setting up very clear boundaries around when and how they can contact you. It gives you back the sense of agency. Like, do you expect them to reply immediately? Do they expect you to reply immediately? Can this wait half an hour? Just before going on this call, I was having a conversation with somebody on LinkedIn. We needed to finalize something. And I just messaged him saying, hey, I'm going on the call in 30 minutes. I'll be back and I'll finish this. This is a super simple thing, but I'm not worried now. He's not worried now. And that's not, a pending thing that is taking away my attention. And very importantly, for the fourth principle, so I spoke time, space, relationship management. And the fourth very important principle is knowing yourself, knowing, like when you're more likely to perform well or like to be yourself versus to give in to digital distractions. A rule that's universal for everyone: when we are tired, our prefrontal cortex is depleted, our willpower gets depleted. So obviously you're much more likely to succumb to digital distractions in the evening. This is what inevitably will happen. So perhaps, plan your day the way that when you need like to do something very demanding intellectually, like don't start with small things that eat up your attention. When you're taking your conscious breaks, make sure that these are actually breaks that you're having time to recharge. Gloria Mark, in her new book, Attention Span, talks about attention peaks and attention valleys. So each of us, for instance, has attention, like the times when our attention is about our best. She talks about usually it's soon after breakfast, around 10 a.m., 11 a.m., and around 3, 4 p.m. So these are, for instance, the times when you can plan, like your most important, most mentally demanding work. I don't know, writing a report, something like that. Emails can wait for after that, when basically you don't need as much attention. So these are very simple things, but they do make a big difference, especially when they get accumulated. And another thing is they're simple, maybe for our generation. I would assume we're probably from the same generation, because we have experience of growing up without devices. If you think about younger generation, they don't have that experience. They don't know what it's like not to be disturbed constantly by the external world, unless they have been like through some retreats or so, but that will be an exotic experience. So we have something to compare to. They don't. So for them, essentially, these kind of skills, this separation, this recreation of boundaries is a whole new world. And that can be, for instance, very, very valuable in the learning environment. because that's what can help learn better, retain information better without having to repeat it multiple times.
The younger generation has a lot of work to do, a lot more work to do in order to find their agency in their life.
Oh, yes. Oh,
so they can actually have a grip on their time and attention. So that is, as a pediatric endocrinologist, I see that every day in my clinic, in the patients who I work with who are struggling with basic life skills. But there is another demographic where I am noticing the effects of digital unwellness, and that is in the workplace. I have now come across several instances of efficiency and productivity going down due to constant distractions and burnout. And they are all of these, there is a relationship between focus and attention and stress and digital wellness and how it translates to burnout. Anastasia, what have you found in your work as far as digital well-being and workplace is concerned?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we did a study last year, end of last year, with 551 employees in different countries, mainly US and Spain. And we have sent them a very extensive questionnaire. So basically what we did, we have reviewed all the literature that exists around digital well-being, and we came up with 16 different constructs. So like psychological, social, physical dimensions, and formulated different questions and got lots of data together and tried to formulate, to nail it down to what are the main 6 factors that reflect the core, of our relationships with digital technologies. So there are 6 ones. The most important one, which kind of explains the biggest difference in whether people have a high level of well-being or lower level of well-being, is the factor that we call conscious use of digital technologies. So that's exactly this. Intentionality, yeah. So what, for example, goes into it? This is holistic, so that looks into psychological, social, and physical dimensions. So it's things like, is a person using their devices for meaningful communication? Can they manage their attention and decision-making in spite of digital overload? What did they rest well? Did they feel, the sense of connection with others? Did they feel the sense of competency? So essentially, if you think about it, this is a factor that describes kind of your digital quality of life. And people who scored high on this factor, actually, they reported also being more purposeful, having more purpose in life, and also having a better overall general well-being. So not just digital well-being, but kind of feeling better, feeling more appreciated by others. So, and this factor also predicts the quality of life. Other things that we found were important is how well, I'm just going through those factors. So how clear and how intentional the person manages their digital communication. Yeah, and in that case, collaboration, connectedness, and communication, kind of for many people, they blend into one thing. Then how much awareness, autonomy, and control a person has over their digital activities. So that's, again, this kind of self-autonomy, self-control that comes in. Then the ability to support body and their overall well-being. So kind of find this balance, but with a focus on the body. How well actually the person can integrate the technology to enhance their physical and mental abilities. I spoke about using technology for meditation, but many more uses. Doesn't mean that you have to, but that's kind of one of the parameters that we found useful in the workplace. And generally, whether the person feels that technology is a positive force, in their life, does it allow them to be in the flow? Does it have a positive impact? or rather is that something that is interfering, they're finding it difficult to develop their digital skills, and kind of it's all hanging on them. So when we look at all these 6 parameters, something that we discovered, in principle, in that group, yes, I'm talking about 551 employees, women showed lower levels of digital well-being compared to men. People who were self-employed and who are solopreneurs showed to have lower digital well-being compared to employed people. And those who were full remote or hybrid had lower digital well-being score compared to those who worked in the office. And also, the less remote they were, then actually the higher quality of life and general well-being they had. Interestingly enough, there were no significant differences between different age groups, but within younger age group, there were more individual differences. So, like one young person could have a very high score, the other very low one. And another thing that was a big predictor of digital well-being was how competent the person actually feels with their devices. So if they're actually well-trained, so that's where we get into the realm of digital literacy. Digital literacy is not digital well-being, but it predicts it. Yeah. So if I know how to use my devices well, I'm also more likely to be managing them better for my own digital well-being. That's why, for instance, for developing countries, I think it's very important to be teaching both digital literacy and digital well-being at the same time, not waiting for one to catch up with the other.
So is technology a positive force in our life? Are we able to integrate technology to enhance our physical and mental well-being? Are we in control of our technology, or is technology controlling us? Some very, very, very powerful questions to think about that have come up from our discussion today, Anastasia. For workplace, what are some of the guidelines or tips or tricks, practical strategies that you recommend to the employees to help tackle the issue of digital literacy and take their first step towards digital well-being?
So I think the first thing is they need to understand that digital well-being is directly related to employees' productivity and overall well-being. So not investing into having a digital well-being policy means that 2-3 years down the line, you're going to have huge burnout problem, huge retention problem, and huge motivation problem, which is essentially what we already see now after the pandemic. People were working longer hours, people were not taking breaks, people were having increased digital communication. Guess what? We have the second pandemic of burnouts, and that's why. Again, not just me speaking, that's been scientifically proven. You can look up all the research papers about that. So I think each organization should have a very clear policy around digital communication, time for work, when it's okay not to reply, what are the consequences, is that okay to just focus on your project to do the deep work session, for instance, without having to respond to instant inquiries? And that has to be very, very well articulated, and the example has to be set up by the leaders. I do still think it's best to have it as an opt-in versus opt-out policy, but it should not be left just somewhere up in the air. I think it needs to be articulated. Practical things, no phone meetings. If digital meetings are in place, making sure that you have at least 15 minutes break in between. I know that in many technologies, you can actually set up the way that you can't book calls one on top of the other. So no back-to-back calls whatsoever. Then, you can do lots of small things, right? Like encouraging people to walk, are all problems solved via digital well-being? No. Like, obviously, if you have, one person doing the role of free,
Yeah.
no digital well-being is going to help, right? Because it's just like there is just too much communication. Sorry, but that's that's not the remedy. But having said that, still lots of things, especially in remote teams, when communication is not efficient, when messages are being duplicated, can be solved by setting up very clear rules. Yeah, like work on the weekends or not, like work after a certain hour or not, right to stay focused, which is not the right to disconnect, right? It's a different thing. In many legislation frameworks, you have to right to disconnect, but not the right to stay focused. And we know that when we cannot stay focused, we actually, our cortisol levels go up after about 20 minutes of switching tasks. So I think that has to be a very clear one. Definitely when companies are going through digital transformation, I think HR leaders and managers need to be involved in the discussions, what it means. What does this mean for human processes? Do people need to have a conversation around how their roles are changing, especially if you're going to introduce AI-based tool? Yeah, this is not just about introducing a new tool. This is about taking away the agency or adding agency to somebody. And you have to be very, very clear about that. So that's not a tech training. This is a human training. Like if I'm a designer and now I'm using, like AI or ChatGPT or whatever, or I'm a researcher, for instance, I'm playing now with ChatGPT around analyzing some of the reports that we gather, and I even paid for the paid version. That's quite powerful. Now that's quite powerful. I like to know which tools are there. But what does this mean? Is there, I'm my own boss, so I can decide, how much of my humanity I want to outsource to that. But in the workplace, is it still up to the analyst to decide that? Or who decides which part of the job is now going to be done by a human versus by the machine? And the more and more smart machines appear, and the more we introduce the smart machines to the workplace, then we need to be very careful about managing people's expectations, because otherwise we're going to end up in the situation when people feel that nothing depends on them. And I'll give you an example. So I had a conversation with somebody who works in the large, in the agency basically that manages content moderation for a few social media networks. So you may know this or not, but social media networks, they basically prefer now not to have employees. They employ huge agencies for many roles, for their own advertising, for social media moderation. So all this, like and TikTok and Facebook and all the big Chinese ones, they often sit somewhere in Europe. For example, Barcelona is a big hub for that. These people work like 10, 12 hours a day. They're not on the contract with this social network. They're actually in the contract with the agency. They get paid peanuts. They're not protected. They don't even have the right to say that they're working with the social network, so they can do it off record. And their work essentially is to read all the social media posts that have been posted and manually see if this has been, if this is violating the rules of the community or not. Now, the algorithm is doing the same. So essentially what these people are doing, they're educating the algorithm, for very little money. Then they highlight if there is a problem, then the algorithm checks this, and this goes for review to a higher instance. These people often don't know what is this higher instance review, where is it, and what's the final verdict. So essentially, they even have no control over what's going to happen with the results of their work. They see no final outcome. What do you think are the burnout rates in this company?
Really
Like
high.
people, like 4 months and people are out, right? And on top of that, they have, very strict time limits. I think it's something like 40 seconds per post or something like that. So this is not a human work, right? But that is the society we are creating And I think we need to be very, very conscious of that, like so far, there were only a few tech companies who had that and who were exploiting, hundreds and thousands of people around the world. Now, as we're moving into generative AI being integrated in the workplace, I think we need to avoid the situation that our roles get reduced to that. Our roles get reduced to, like educators of smart algorithms with very limited roles for very little money, because this is a direct way to the burnout, loss of motivation, and the loss of any humanity that's remaining for us. Sorry, I'm very passionate about the subjects.
I hear your passion. This is fascinating and scary on several different levels. We have to be mindful of introducing AI into our lives, mindful of bringing AI into our workplace. There seem to be believers and skeptics of artificial intelligence, generative intelligence. But the bottom line is we have to be careful about what we choose to bring into our lives. Are we outsourcing abilities, or are we outsourcing our own humanity? So thank you.
The bottom line. Yeah. Just one last thing. Just the bottom line of all this for me is, like everything that you bring into your life changes you. What you eat changes you. People you interact with changes you. Your tools, your tech tools change you. Yes. So just as you're mindful with what kind of people you hang out with, what you put into your mouth, be mindful about what you put into your head. It's the same thing.
Be mindful of what you put in your body. Be mindful of what you're putting in your head. Be mindful of the technology that you're bringing into your life. Intentionality, being consciously digital about your digital well-being, about your digital literacy. Thank you so much, Anastasia. Thank you for sharing your insights and for making time for us on Inspinar. It was a fascinating conversation. Let's reconnect with what truly matters. Let's reconnect with health, joy, and efficiency. Let's reclaim our time and attention. Let's ungrip devices and grip life. I will see you next time.